Hey, folks, it's Mike. I was just sitting here tonight and I was thinking to myself, I wonder if people realize how real first responders are. I'm sitting here, I got no fancy equipment. I got nothing but me and the fire and a little bit of whiskey. And I was thinking to myself, do people actually realize sometimes how they treat police, first responders? Because I'm sure they don't. I am lucky enough to see people at their worst. Nobody ever calls the police when little Johnny gets an A. They call us when they're at the worst part of their life. They have a fight with their husband. They have a fight with their wife. They crash their car. Something horrific happens. And I get the call and I go. And I have to deal with that internally. And I don't think people realize that. And I would love to bring awareness to that fact that I'm a human being, just like you, just like everybody else. I have bills. I have a family. I have a house and a property to take care of, just like you. I go out in the summer and put on some shorts and a tank top and mow my yard just like everybody else. I'm not a cop when I do that. I'm just Mike. So when I stop you because you are breaking the law in some aspect, I'm not sure why people feel the need to give me a hard time. I'm going to tell you a little story. Years and years ago, I went to a call of a disabled vehicle. Now, what the car did was it made a left turn, and it made the turn so wide that it hit the curb on the other side of the intersection and popped the tire. The car was just sitting there with four ways on because the driver really didn't know what to do. And somebody else called us to see if that driver needed help. So I responded, and wouldn't you know, this was a school teacher who had been at happy hour with the ladies way too long, and she was drunk out of her mind. Couldn't stand up to do field sobriety tests. So I had to arrest her and prosecute her and charge her with DUI. But you know what? That was my fault. She yelled and screamed and called me everything in the book because it's my fault that she's going to lose her job and lose all this whatever. She was getting ready to drive over an hour home from the bar. It just so happens that she hit a curb 2 or 3 blocks from the bar that disabled her vehicle. I think maybe the big guy upstairs was working that night and probably popped that tire to make sure that she didn't kill an entire family on the highway. But it was my fault. I want you to know that. It was my fault for ruining her life. She's going to lose her teaching certificate and all this stuff. That's all my fault. People will look at me and say, well, that's just part of the job. Man, you signed up for this. I guess in a way I did. I heard a statistic today, and I don't know how accurate it is. I didn't look it up. This is merely one person telling me a statistic that they had heard. So if I'm wrong, sorry. The statistic was that the average person sees 3 to 5 traumatic events in their life. Horrifying things. The average police officer sees 188, I think was the number. 188. And that's on average. So if you have a police department in a really small town, he's probably very low on the average scale. And you have a police officer in a large metropolitan environment that sees a lot more. This is average 188 in a lifetime, or I'm sorry, in a career. That's crazy. I'm going to tell you another little story while we're here. Probably 10, 15 years ago, I went to a call, and it was an infant cardiac arrest. One of the worst calls that you can hear come over the radio. Your heart sinks. Your stomach is in shambles, thinking of what you're going to find when you get there. I have children of my own, so I'm already at 10. And any parents out there, I'm sure you can understand, you'd be at 10 hearing about an infant cardiac arrest, because I'm going to be expected to save this child if I can. And I don't know if that's going to be able to happen. So what I do is I arrive. Sorry, I'm trying to put a little bit of light over there. I don't have any lighting here. I'm expected to perform CPR. So that's already a big thing on my part. When I'm not an emergency medical technician, we do receive training. But let me tell you something, it's a whole nother level when you have an infant. So what happens is I go to the call, and there's a woman inside screaming hysterically. I make my way into the house, and there is I'd say approximately 1 to 2 month old infant laying on the floor, the linoleum kitchen floor, and nothing but a diaper. Baby's already gone. So I go into the house and I try to figure out what's going on. First responders come, EMS arrives, fire arrives. There's all kinds of chaos going on. Well, what happened is Grandma was watching the child during the day and accidentally smothered the child during a nap on the bed. Horrific, absolutely. But I stood in that kitchen for, I'd say at least 2 hours, maybe 3, waiting for evidence technicians, waiting for detectives to do their job, until we called the coroner to come pick up the child. I got to sit there and watch this lifeless baby on the floor of a kitchen. And I'll be honest with you, there was a fly buzzing around its mouth and its nose. And every once in a while, I'd lean down, I'd shoo it away. I saw the image of that infant for months. And if I close my eyes now, I can still see it. That was 10, 15 years ago. But what I want you to understand is when I leave that house, after the parents arrive home, I hear screaming, I hear crying, because they just lost their baby. I leave that house after the police are done there, and I do my report, and I don't get to go home. It's not like a normal 9-to-5 job where if you see something horrific and it upsets you, you get to go home. I go back out on patrol. And then maybe I stop you for speeding. Now, you don't know that what I just witnessed. You have no idea the trauma that I just incurred. But you want to give me a hard time because you were doing wrong and I caught you. I just want to bring awareness to the fact that first responders are human beings. We have problems at home just like you do. You have a fight with your wife or husband before you go to work. It's on your mind. We've all done it. So when that police officer pulls you over, just realize that you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. There are bad cops out there. Hands down, I'll admit it. Just the same as if you call Verizon, you're going to get somebody who's really nice, or you're going to get somebody who's a real asshole and doesn't want to help you. We're no different. I'd like to say we are, but we're not. And I think people look at us like we're emotionless robots just doing a job and feeling zero emotion. I'd just like to bring some awareness to the fact that we are human. And I'd be more than happy to sit down with anybody and talk about the trauma that I've incurred. But I can tell you right now, normally it involves a couple of these before I even talk about it. Now, we do have EAP, we have counseling available to us, but that's something that you seek out on your own unless somebody in a supervisory position feels that they see changes in you that would warrant you to be off duty. So unless you're in an extreme mental health crisis over something that you saw, what do we, for those that are cops that are watching, what do? We swallow it down. Because we got to be tough. We got to be there for the bad guys. And we can't let little things like that affect us. And it does. It does deep down. So I'll be back with more stories. I was just giving my 2 cents on something, just like this channel is going to do once in a while. So if you had some thoughts, feel free to comment. And please be sure to subscribe, hit the like button. I'll be honest, not quite sure what it does yet, but I'm on this crazy journey to see where it goes. And I guess that's the right thing to do, is like and subscribe. So please do that. All right, we'll talk to you later. All right, bye-bye.